I'm your host, Vivian Cumins, and today I am super excited for my guest. We're going to do something a little different today. I have invited one of my dear friends and prior colleagues, Anthony Jackson, to come on today and talk about his review of my new book, Breakdown Better 52 Restoring Devotionals for Burned Out Women. So, Anthony, thank you so much for joining me today. How are you, my friend?
I'm great. I'm excited. I was looking forward to this, and I know one of the first questions people are going to have is like, how do you know this guy, and why are you having him review a book that was, primarily focused for women? And I am looking forward to answering those questions.
I
Plus, I
love
always have
it.
fun talking to you.
I love talking to you too. We have spent many, many hours over the last, gosh, I don't know. I think I got to know you in 2014 when we first started working
Mhm.
together, but we have spent many hours on calls together and traveling together for work. But before we just get into all that, why don't you tell our listeners a little something about who Anthony is?
All right. Well, hello, listeners. Um, my name's Anthony Jackson, and I am a recently retired uh, federal
Yay.
ombuds. I used to work with Vivian, and I've known her for many years. And even though we were no longer working specifically together, uh, I've never lost the relationship that I've had with her,
Oh.
and the appreciation and the admiration that I have with her as well, and the respect,
Oh.
because even though you might look at us and not think that we have a whole bunch in common, we actually do.
We
We
sure
actually
do.
do.
We
Yep.
do.
So
Yes.
anyway, I've been doing this work for about 25 years or so, and I just turned 65, just got my Medicare card, and I am now in retirement
Mhm.
from that government position, but I still do some work on the side.
Mm-hmm.
That's
Yes,
me.
we are both now retired. My official retirement date was September 30th, and so it's
Yep.
so surreal. It's so surreal starting this new journey in life. But yes, I Anthony and I have had the opportunity. We've gone on many business trips together and got to know each other very well on those business trips, and so it is just such an honor and joy to continue this friendship. And so, yes, I do think one of the first questions that people might have is why in the world did Anthony read this book that is targeted to a woman's audience? So, why don't you just kind of explain what led you to pick up Breakdown Better?
All right. First of all, it was Vivian. So I've known her long enough that I knew when she was starting to do this whole writing thing, and how God had placed that on her heart, and
Hmm.
how she was making efforts and spending time and energy and investments, and we would talk about some of the things
Yeah.
when we would have our personal conversations. And so as she was talking about it, something inside of me, maybe it was just curiosity, made me think, I wonder if there might be something in that book for me, because even though Vivian is who she is, and even though I am who I am, a lot of the things that she was saying resonated with me. And this is before I even saw a word in print.
Mm-hmm.
And then I found out when I actually did, read the book, that most of it, if not all of it, I could relate to. I'd
Wow.
had similar experiences. I got the benefit of the things that she was being taught by the Lord, because I was also being taught those things from the Lord. And so there was a synchronicity of like, aha, this is almost like an affirmation that I
Wow.
am reading this book, that I have my own experiences I could plug in.
Hmm.
And even though she says that it's, for women, um, I have to say that I've never read a devotional for burned out women before. This is my first.
Well, I'm
But
glad it
I
was
have to
mine.
say, yeah, but I have to say that even though it might be marketed to women, I think men will definitely find themselves in here too, because women aren't the only ones who are people pleasing
So true.
perfectionists and who
So
are
true.
burned out, overburdened, overcommitted, uh, not have balance in their life. All
Mm-hmm.
of the things, the list is long.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah,
Mm-hmm.
so I was excited to see. I thought if I can get something, anything out of this that would be beneficial, that would confirm or affirm something for
Mm-hmm.
me, then I would feel like I'm on the right track with the things that I'm doing and the intentions that I have.
Mm-hmm.
And the book was not just a great confirmation of those things, but I felt it was a great guide
Mm.
for maybe people who haven't quite gotten that far in their journey and they're still
Yeah.
in that broke down place.
Yes. Well,
So
thank you so
that's where
much
I
for
wanted to leave it.
sharing. Thank you for sharing that. It's funny because when you're writing a book, they tell you, all the experts and coaches tell you, you have to determine who your target audience is, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so you can't target everybody because you can't write something for everybody that will fit everybody's situation. And so I'm a woman, right? And I know that my experience with having numerous breakdowns and going through burnout, I know as a woman what I went through and what caused that, me to get to that point. And so that's kind of, the target audience is for women, but you make such a great point that men go through this stuff as well. And it's so funny because Joyce Meyer, I'm a big fan of Joyce Meyer, and she has a book, How to Heal the Soul of a Woman, something like that. And I was watching her one time when she was promoting that book, and she's like, okay, listen, guys, I know this says healing the soul of a woman, but all you have to do is put your finger or maybe a piece of tape or something over the woe. And now it's for men because the message is for men too, but you have to target. And so I really appreciate what you said there about that there is nuggets, and that yes, it says for women, but there's some stuff there for us, for you dudes too, I think.
Absolutely. There's plenty. And now I'm not speaking for all men, okay? Only for myself. But in general, I know a fair about what a lot of males do appreciate. And one of those things is not always a big, huge book that has several hundred
Yes.
pages, is going to take them forever to get through, is in tiny, tiny print.
Mm,
And it's a devotional for women.
mm.
Okay, that might not jump up, at a lot of people, but that's why I really appreciated the way that speaking about break down better,
Mhm.
the way you broke down this book was awesome in the
Thanks.
three sections, regarding God and self care and having fun and enjoying life,
Mm,
and then in each of your devotionals, you had three parts where you had the scripture, then you had like your context or the story,
mm,
so, to explain more about it and add your personal piece to it, and then you had the prayer
mm.
followed at the end by all of the promise scriptures
Yeah.
as well for each of those different sections. And the way that you did that, people can jump into as little as they want
Mm.
or as much as they want. By
Yeah.
having each of the different things on just like a page or two, it made it eminently readable.
Oh,
And if you like had read enough and you only had a certain amount of time, this book is perfect for that.
well, thank you. There's a reason for the 52 days, actually, and it's kind of one of those things where it depends on how deep you want to go. So for me, um, I am that target audience. I am that busy woman who does not have time. And when I was writing it, I was trying to juggle career and life and home and all the things. I didn't have time for, like you said, a self-help book that's 400 plus pages. I needed small nuggets of encouragement and inspiration and God winks to get me through that morning, that day. And so for me, I'm thinking, okay, busy women and men don't have time to sit down and read an entire chapter to get their day started. And so that was kind of the reason behind making them so short and punchy. And then also too, 52 weeks in a year. So if you want to
Mhm.
be one of those folks, maybe you have a little extra time and you want to really dive deep into it, you can do one a week. And with those scriptures, really dive deep into it. I do have a guided journal that's coming out, hopefully the same time as when the official book release for Breakdown Better comes out on December 30th. But that's for that person who wants to take that extra time, and maybe not 52 days, but maybe within a year, to really dive deep into the cause of their burnout, and how they can learn with God to be restored fully to where they were before they burned out. So thank you for
That's
bringing
awesome.
that point up, because it was really important to me that that we provided something that people can use in the season that they're in.
Absolutely. It was concise, it was practical, and the way that you set it up, people could do as much or as
Mm-hmm.
little depending on their time frame. And,
Yeah.
and I thought it was really, really, really bite-sized chunks.
Mm.
So even if you have, and the other thing is, I found a lot of people that I know in this book.
Oh.
I was thinking, oh, so and so would really appreciate that
Mm.
particular one, and so somebody else would appreciate this particular one. So I honestly think you didn't ask me to say this, but
Oh.
I think this book, I think this book would make an excellent, excellent gift, because I ventured to guess that there are very few people who are not dealing with the subject matter in there,
Mm-hmm.
in those various areas.
Mm-hmm.
And if somebody knows, hey, I'm the kind of person and I'm not really feeling, connected to the Lord, maybe I want to look at that God section
Mm-hmm.
and see how I can do that better.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe a lot of people I know are here. Maybe I haven't really been practicing the self-care that I need. And maybe I haven't been treating my body like a temple. And maybe I really need to be more intentional
Mm-hmm.
about taking care of myself so that I can have something for others.
Yeah.
And they can look in that self-care part. And then how many people do we know out there? They're so busy doing so much, trying to please everybody and trying to be perfect, that they're not having any fun at all.
Yeah.
They're not having fun. They're not enjoying life. And sometimes they may not be that great to be around.
That is
And
so
so
true.
we
Mm-hmm.
have interactions with lots of people. And if we're not able to enjoy life and have fun, we're not going to have as many people who want to be around us.
I agree. You know,
Yeah.
when we were working together, I mean, we were there for some time. We were doing conflict resolution together and
Mhm.
stuff, and so we would go out and we would talk to people and try to help them determine the cause of the conflict. And I kind of look at like burnout the same way, is understanding the underlying root cause of the burnout. And when you're in the workforce, we do talk about burnout. I think we may have even given some trainings on burnout, but because you're in the workplace, you have to be very careful. You can't necessarily bring in the spiritual aspect behind that.
That's right. Especially
And
now in the federal government.
right, right. You just got to be really careful. And so, that's for those that are listening that may not know about all of the book yet, but it is broken out in three parts. And those three parts are God first, self-care, and fun. And one of the things that God really taught me, with the most severe breakdown that I suffered from in 2020, was that I was just so out of balance. And that balance is not hard. I mean, we talk about it all the time, work life balance and all that. And we have not been able as a society to understand and grasp that living a life of balance is not hard. It's it's something that you have to work at intentionally, like every day, probably like every hour. You have to constantly be thinking about it. But
Yep.
just, keeping God first in everything and all of your decisions, every move that you make, making him the priority, taking care of yourself, because we're no good to anybody if we're not taking care of ourselves. And then that third piece of having fun. And so that's something that they don't teach in the workplace. And so it would be really great, to be able to get a message out to people who are suffering, because burnout, that term, kind of came from the workplace, right? Years ago,
Mhm.
people were all burned out because of work and work-life balance and stuff. But burnout can be so many different things, can be, from so many different things, and just understanding where it originated from. And I think you brought up a good point, the perfectionism, the controlling, all of those things. Do you agree?
Absolutely. Burnout, I think sometimes people automatically attach that to work.
Mm-hmm.
But the fact is, you can burn out in any area of your life.
Mm-hmm.
You might be a caregiver, right? If you're a parent, you're definitely a caregiver.
Yes.
And you may be a caregiver older, for
Mm-hmm.
people who are older. You
Mm-hmm.
may be a caregiver for children or people who are younger.
Mm-hmm.
And even doing that, you can get burned out.
Mm-hmm.
Even doing religious charity work, you
Mm-hmm.
can get burned out,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Even partying and going out to clubs and whatever, you can even get burned out on that.
Yeah.
So burnout is something that applies to almost every area of our life if
Yeah.
we're not intentional about it.
Yeah, and I know you, experienced. You brought up being a caregiver. I know there was a time, when we were working together, that you were caring for your family members, your parents, and
Yeah.
so I know that that was a really tough time for you, trying to juggle taking care of your family as well as working and still maintaining that career. And you had clients, that you were trying to
Yes.
work through.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. Absolutely. Um, it's one of the parts of your. There are several parts of your book, but the thing about the self care that resonated with me was, it took the Lord sort of slapping me upside the head to realize that I couldn't continue the way that I
Right.
had been. Right,
Right.
I was
Mm-hmm.
striving and trying to get promotions and like
Oh
doing all the
yeah,
things
I
I could
remember
to
that. Yep.
better myself,
No. Mm-hmm.
and I was pretty good at it. Maybe not as good as Vivian, but
Oh,
I
come
was
on
pretty
now.
good.
Mm-mm.
And I was doing my thing. And then the first thing that happened that made me sort of reassess and everything was when the pandemic hit.
Mm,
And all of a sudden, I couldn't, right? I could not do like what I had been
yep.
doing, the way I'd been doing it, and all of that. And I had time now to contemplate, to go for
Mm-hmm.
walk, to act, actually
Mm-hmm.
had time for self-care. I didn't have
Yeah.
that as an excuse
Mm-hmm.
anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And as I got into doing those things, I realized that they're beneficial. They're hugely beneficial.
Yeah.
Um, and so a blessing that I got from the pandemic wasn't the disease,
Mm.
it was the time and the
Mm-hmm.
opportunity. And my path got changed whether I wanted it to or not.
Mm-hmm.
Then that was followed by, my father needing care and me being the primary caregiver there. That forced me to make my work life secondary,
Right.
where it had always been sort of primary up to that point in time.
Right.
And so that was a wonderful learning experience. I really got to connect and get close to my dad and my mom. And it was another thing that I'm not happy that it happened, but I
Mm-hmm.
see the blessing that it was,
Mm-hmm.
for me and for my parents,
Right.
to be able to have me there
Right.
regularly.
Right.
And so I was kind of okay, so some people hopefully will get this and they'll decide on their own, I need to be intentional about these things. I don't know if that would have been me.
Mm.
Honest, just being honest, it took me being in situations where I couldn't continue to do
Right.
things the way that I had been doing them, and had to start thinking about other ways and other things. And my best friend had told me, because he went through being the primary caregiver for his mom and dad when they passed, and he said, Anthony, the one thing I would have done differently, I would have still spent all the time and done all the things that I did. It was wonderfully blessing, but he said, I would have taken care of myself better. I would have practiced
Mm,
more self care. I would have
yeah.
made sure I was okay, because then that would have benefited me
Mm-hmm.
and it would have benefited them too.
Mm-hmm.
And it's true, if you don't do the self care,
Yeah.
then you have very little, or what you do have to give others is not the best that it can be. And
Yeah.
that's not perfectionism, that's practicality.
Yeah. Very good. Very good. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. For me, I hate sometimes that God has to knock us down to get our attention, but we're given that free will, and so he lets
Hmm.
us roam around free. But for me, I had a breakdown, a severe breakdown, but then at that point is when I really was reaching out to God and was like, I can't live like this anymore. And I mentioned it in the book that it was so severe that I didn't want to take my own life, but I was begging him to do it for me so that I could so it would be over.
Over.
But it was in that moment that I really felt God telling me just to hold on. I'm going to restore you, but you got to put in the work. And so it was just a moment of surrender for me. But I will tell you, Anthony, once I surrendered, it was not easy.
Hmm.
And the thing that God allowed to happen with me was, as you remember, I got melanoma cancer.
Yep.
And that journey is what kind of put me on my back. But you know what? Even as rough as that was, what a blessing came out of it, because God spoke to me in so many ways and taught me so many things about many of the things that I talk about in the book is, the surrender and the obedience and putting God first and taking care of myself and having fun and recognizing what is really important. God gave us work. It's a
Hmm.
blessing to be able to work. And if you can and physically and mentally able to work, it is of God, right? But he
Absolutely.
never intended for us to make work our God or our idol,
Yes,
right?
that's right. That's right.
And
Yes,
that's what I
yes.
was doing. And I think that's what a lot of people do. And I'm not
Me
just
too.
talking about work in the workplace, I'm talking about
Hmm.
work at home, taking care of children, doing all of the things that we do. Those can become idols in our lives. And that's what it
Yeah.
was for me. And that's one of the things God was showing me. He showed me so many things, but that was one of the things he was trying to get across to me is that career that you've been striving for all these years to climb the ladder, that's not necessarily what's important here. What's important is kingdom building, which you can't
Yes.
do if you're, burned out and depressed and all the things. Your family, your friends, enjoying the life that I gave you. Those are the things that are important. Work has its place, but when we get out of balance and we make our work or career or whatever our identity and place that before God, that's when we have a problem. And so
Amen to
I am
that.
forever grateful for that season where I don't, cancer's horrible, but he saw me
Yeah.
through it, and I'm better for it. I'm here today, with a testimony to be able to share with others. So
You didn't realize that he was giving you content for your
I
book.
know. I know. Well, and the funny thing is, Anthony, is I started journaling. I've always no, that's kind of not true. I've journaled. I've never been really religious with my journaling. I'd be like journal for a little bit and then I wouldn't do it again for a couple of years. But I decided April of 21 is when I was diagnosed with cancer. And that's when I started journaling. And I've got about 15 journals now full of just everything, from every feeling, every emotion. I mean, every thought, every idea, and going back and looking at those, you're absolutely right. Blog posts come out of them, devotionals come out of them, this book came out of them, and so he was he was downloading content all those years that I didn't
Absolutely.
know. So just for those who journal, I mean, you could be writing your future story. So keep journaling. I love to do that now.
I think journaling is great because you're thinking about what you're writing down.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So a lot of people are on social media and they practically record their whole lives, right? Especially when they're doing something fun or something they
Yeah.
want to be able to look back on, or they want other people to like, or right, whatever. So a lot of people have content,
Mm-hmm.
right? A lot of people have content,
Yeah.
but it's what you do with that content
So true.
that really matters, right?
Yeah.
And it's the journeys,
Mm-hmm.
the journeys, that the Lord walks with us
Yeah.
on. It's those journeys that, in my case, almost never are the way that I envision something happening. So
Yeah.
I will have a dream, a goal, a desire. Oh Lord, please help me, blah, 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 whatever, right? And almost inevitably, I will get that thing, but almost never is it the way that I saw it happening, or
Right.
is it at the speed that
Yes.
I had expected it,
Mm-hmm.
or at the
Mm-hmm.
age that I thought, this,
Mm-hmm.
should be a done deal and all of that. It's almost like the Lord says, yes, I hear you. I hear you, my child. You will get this. But he doesn't say the part of, but it ain't happening the way you think.
It's going to happen my way. I know. When I
That's
first
right.
started writing, Anthony, so I've always enjoyed writing. I used to get like when I was in college, I would get like awards for
Oh, I
writing. Like
bet.
I would, well, that was kind of one of the ways I paid for college is every thing that came out like a scholarship or whatever, you had to write something.
Hmm.
So I would write and I would win. I was like, oh, I think I might be able to write a little bit. That's cool. Well, in 2018, I really felt it on my heart that I was supposed to write my husband's story. And that's what
Oh,
I started doing. So when you and I first got to
mhm,
know each other,
mhm.
that's the book I was writing is my husband's story. And it's such a good story. And I think it has a place on a shelf someday. But I
Mhm.
got about 300 pages in and then just hit a wall. I mean, hit a wall. And I remember one day, Eddie, my husband, saying, he says, I don't think you're supposed to write my story. I think you're supposed to write yours first. And I'm like, well, I don't have a story. And then guess what? I got me a story. But it
You
wasn't
sure
what I
do.
thought. I mean, definitely wasn't what I thought. And it definitely didn't happen in the time that I thought it was going to happen. I remember having a conversation with God when I turned 50. And I was like, you know, I'm 50, right? I mean, it's like, I'm kind of getting up. I mean, I don't mean 50's old. I don't feel old,
No.
but I mean, it's getting up there. If I was going to have this, book out, I would have wanted to do it a little bit sooner. But yeah, it didn't come the way I expected at all, or the time, or even in the format, um, devotional writing wasn't even on my radar. So it's
Hmm.
just funny. I think
Hmm.
God sometimes he's up there and he puts this desire and dream in our heart and then we make it into something that he never intended. And I think sometimes he just looks down, he's like, she's so cute.
Yes, yes.
Just let her do her
He's
thing for a
laughing.
while. She'll frustrate herself enough and she'll come back and I'll set her straight again, you
But,
know?
don't forget though, those 300 pages and all of the whatever you went through to do that,
Mm,
that was training.
it was so
That
much
was training.
training.
That was an
Mm-hmm.
opportunity for you to write
Mm-hmm.
about something you cared about,
Yep.
for you to, to get better and better and better at it. You had
Mm-hmm.
probably people reviewing it and things like
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And all of that, even though that didn't end up being your first book, all of that led to you then being able to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
It was all a
Training.
part of the journey. It
Mm-hmm.
was training.
Training and
Absolutely.
preparation. I think that's so important. And just a fun fact, sidebar on that, um, because I did a lot of ancestry research, on my
Uh,
husband. We ended up finding a whole new family he never knew he had. So that's a whole sidebar. So that's also going to be in the book because that's pretty darn amazing. But what a
yes.
blessing that came out of all of that work and stuff, that we were able to find family that didn't know we're even out there. So that's pretty fun. Pretty fun.
And if if you're thinking like me, you're happy now that all of this happened,
Mm-hmm.
even though it was a convoluted way of getting to what your end goal was, right? Which was right being able to
Yeah.
publish your first book and have it out there
Yeah.
and all of that. And yet, when you look back, it's like nobody does a better plan than God does.
Right.
And that plan now has included so much more
Mm-hmm.
to help you, to benefit you, so that you can help and benefit others.
Mm-hmm.
That's what your book is for. It's for His glory, and it's to help and benefit others,
Yeah.
including the men that are
Include
willing to check it out.
including the men. And I love that you brought that up, because that circles me back to a question that, Anthony, if you could sum up, I'm just curious, if you could sum up this book, Break Down Better, in one sentence or a few that would encourage both men and women, what would you say?
I would say, well, first of all, I've read some things in your book that I think would be like a great answer to it. Like,
Okay.
have the endless demands of work, home, and never ending to do list left you exhausted, burned out, and broken? You know what? That's not a sexist statement right there.
Mm.
Not at all. There's no mention of like this is for women or this is, but that statement, have the endless demands of work, home, and never ending to do lists.
Mm.
And honestly, aren't those things all self imposed? But anyway,
Oh, that's a
left
whole
you,
nother podcast, isn't it, Anthony?
right? Yes,
I'll
that's
have
right.
you back.
Left you exhausted, burned out, and broken. Another way that really appeals to me is, have you found that being a people pleasing perfectionist has not been, the wonderful thing that you had hoped?
Mm.
And then I would add a thing about, check out Vivian Cumins' new book, Break Down Better. It's 52 Restoring Devotionals for folks who are burned out. Now I know you have burned out women, but if I'm doing the promo,
You're
I'm
doing a
gonna
promo.
I'm gonna do it that way. Yes.
I
So
love it. I
yeah,
love it.
both of those I think are ways that I would describe your book and why somebody should be interested in reading it. And a lot of it, you've got the language here. You just, depending on your customer, you know how you tailor, you tailor your expression of whatever you're wanting to share to the person. I can certainly think of several folks that I think would find a lot of value in this book, both males and females.
Oh. Well, Anthony, thank you so much for following me in this journey, for being a soundboard. I can't even count how many times that I've reached out to you to see if you were busy to jump on a Teams or a Zoom call with me just to talk through things. You've always been such an absolute supporter and one of my biggest cheerleaders. So I just want to thank you for continuing this journey with me and for agreeing to come on to my podcast and share your thoughts about this
Sure.
new book. And so for those who are
This is
listening,
fun.
oh, thank you. It has been fun. So, for those who are listening and watching, just a few reminders. If you haven't already done so, please click that subscribe button wherever you're listening or watching so that you can catch every updated episode. And then also, you can follow me on my website, viviancumins.com. You're going to find all kinds of information there, including devotionals and blog posts and some of my prior podcast episodes. And more importantly, you'll have a link there that takes you over to Amazon and Barnes & Noble so you can pre-order my new book, Break Down Better, 52 Restoring Devotionals for Burned Out Women. It officially launches on December 30th. And also be watching for the guided journal, which is going to be the companion. So for those of you who want to do this for 52 weeks, we got you covered. You can grab that guided journal that will take you through each of the 52 devotionals. So until next time, be blessed and stay balanced.